Fueling for Performance, New Year habit building webinar we have for tonight. Myself, Elizabeth Impine, Scott with FUELIN. We've done our intros with you guys before, so in the saving some time, we'll just head to the agenda. We're going to talk about the importance and the kind of insignificance of New Year's resolutions and where athletes and people in general get a little bit caught up in how to properly plan your year ahead. Looking at that, the importance of doing yearly blood testing, a DEXA scan, really doing that overall body check, and then diving into what the FUELIN Kitchen looks like and how to build these healthy habits and set yourself up for success for 2023. All right, so New Year's resolutions, we all make them, or at least set out to make them. I think there's a reason that we do it. We like a clean slate and we like a start, but there's some problems with those. Scott, do you want to do these James clear quote?
Yeah. So I was talking to Elizabeth, and just because there's only a small group on this, then certainly Ashley and Yvonne, if you're happy to have your cameras on, it's always nice. And secondly, if you want to just stop us at any time and ask questions, then feel free. I think the reason I really like James Clear, if you know him as an author, he wrote Atomic Habits, which is a very good book, and it's nice to reference as a way of improving habit formation. But it's something I talk about a lot, and certainly Elizabeth, myself with athletes talk about, is like goals are all well and good, but if you don't have the system in place, it doesn't really end up working out very well. And what we talk about here as much as anything is that a system needs to be in place for nutrition just as much as it needs to be in place for your training. And really that's probably where the whole, concept of FUELIN came from, is that really what wasn't being developed was a training-based nutrition plan for athletes that was easy to follow. So, and from my perspective, I've been doing triathlon training more recently to get more into it, to sort of appreciate what athletes go through. And incidentally, I wasn't following my own advice and following my own program. And I was wondering why I was training a lot more, I wasn't necessarily achieving my purpose, which was at that point in time actually trying to lose a little bit of weight. And what I realized is my training was going very well, but I wasn't following my nutrition plan at all. And as a result, despite having a goal of, getting down to 81, 82 kilos, the goal was just wishful thinking because I wasn't actually following the plan and the process. So, speaking from a personal perspective, but also anecdotally, and also from what we see with the athletes that use the program, is that if you follow a training program, you will do very well. If you follow a training and a nutrition program, you'll tend to do exceptionally well. So that's pretty much where we come with that.
And just as it's, pointing out what often goes wrong or mistakes that people make at this time of year, again, from James, trying to change everything at once. And this is where that, pick one thing and do it well. If if that's packing a lunch for work, if that's setting an alarm to refuel immediately after your training session, if that's a reminder to add protein to every meal, instead of trying to completely revamp your diet, because that's your New Year's resolution, pick one thing, do it well, and then move to the next. Often people will start with a habit that's too big. It's like, oh, I'm going to bike 100 miles. I want to do that, by the end of the month. And it's like, well, you haven't biked any miles. That's a big goal. So instead it's like, take those small doable pieces. So you see that success, you can be consistent with it. Bike 2 miles today, then 3 miles tomorrow, and so on. Setting a result, you're seeking a result, not a ritual. That's that if you're focusing on the outcome rather than the behavior change. So a lot of times where nutrition is concerned, athletes are like, oh, I want to lose 10 pounds, or, oh, I want to, I don't want GI issues anymore in my marathon. Well, if you're looking at that outcome of losing 10 pounds, sure, you might if you happen to choose some kind of crash diet, but then if you didn't change the rituals that gave you that 10 pounds, you're going to go right back. So the importance of actually building in new rituals. Do you snack at night? Do you skip meals? Do you consume, 3 to 4 glasses of wine in the evening? Like, until you change those rituals, you're not going to see a result. Not changing your environment. This is big. Just like the benefit of joining a triathlon team, like top line, when you surround yourself with like-minded people and people that are going after your goal and people that are going to influence you in a positive way, the same happens when you're trying to change nutrition. So by not only being part of a community that is working on their nutrition, but we will get into this at the end, fixing your kitchen, setting yourself up for success, talking with your family, talking with your friends. If you're really trying to work on training nutrition, establish, like, set up the things that you need. If you need protein powder, have it in the house. Like, make your environment so that you are set up for success. Do not keep it the way that it was. And then lastly, assuming that small changes don't add up. Every little bit helps, and every little bit gets you further and further and closer to that goal. And the motivation, it's always hard to start something new. And that's why that motivation curve, that first I'm going to the gym, or that first I'm going to really, eat well till tomorrow, it's hard to start. But the more you do it as time goes on, the easier and the less motivation that you need to get that accomplished.
Yeah, and there's two things I'll just add to that. It's much easier to avoid than resist. So if you are trying to improve your diet, then go through your fridge, go through your pantry, remove everything that's not going to allow you to succeed in whatever you're trying to do. If I've got ice cream in the freezer, I eat the ice cream. If it's not in the freezer, I can't eat it. It's simple as that. Okay, it doesn't have to be really tricky, but it is much easier to avoid than resist. Sounds funny. I can see Yvonne laughing, but it works. If I don't, I'm a chocolate and an ice cream monster, as my girlfriend describes me. So if I don't have it in the house, it just doesn't get eaten. And then the other thing, in terms of, I've written this before, is like, motivation is one thing, but commitment's another. And there's a distinction there. If you commit publicly to something, it often actually will be much stronger than just motivation on itself. So sometimes actually being vocal about what you're committing to will help in terms of that motivation. And then if you factor in the process and the principles behind that, you'll often have a much better outcome as well. And I think if, a lot of the time we get athletes coming to us, and, invariably when we ask what their current weight is and what their goal weight is, I would say probably somewhere in the realm of 95 to 99% of athletes actually have a reduction in body weight or body composition as one of their goals. Now, it may not be their primary goal, but it certainly is going to be somewhere as a goal. And I think the most common mistake that we see is that, exactly as this quote says, though, you need to understand what your priority is and then have that in line with what you're trying to achieve with your coach. So there is a distinction between losing body fat and how you're going to feel, because you're going to have to be in a caloric deficit. Performance in sessions may not be as good as what they would be if you were fully fueled up and ready to go and really looking to lay it down. Now, I'm not saying one is correct over the other, but it's important to distinguish what you're trying to achieve and that purpose of the training at that point in time, because they are quite distinct in terms of the nutritional approaches to them. Okay.
So next up are some, what I like to call kind of the body check. This is the perfect time of year as you're getting started to do the blood work, do the DEXA scans, get a picture of where you're at today. Now, the reason that we recommend blood testing, and I use the word recommend because it's a little stronger than encourage, but I would go so far as to say demand. It's something that you need to do, not just as an athlete. The importance of understanding what's going on inside your body, it's essential to long-term health and longevity, and it's essential to performance in sport. So why do you want to get tested? So that you can establish benchmarks and a baseline. Just like you do tests at the beginning of the year to see where you're at physically, do the blood work so that you know where you're at physically on the inside. It now is the perfect time to treat deficiencies. It's also helpful to know what you're having to treat, so you're not taking an endless amount of supplements. If you have a deficiency, say iron, vitamin D, vitamin B, it's not going to fix itself overnight. And so you need time in order to get those levels back to where they're supposed to be. So these first few months of the season, this is an excellent time to do that. It's not 2 weeks out from your A race. And by starting this now and taking a look at it and committing to it, you have the time to make changes, retest again, see if it's working, and then possibly make other changes as you're going. It also helps with season planning. Like it sets you up for the year ahead by knowing I'm committed to this. I've looked at it. I'm going to work on my vitamin D. I'm going to incorporate more foods with magnesium so that when I'm racing in May or when I'm racing in July or October, I have given myself the time and preparation needed to actually improve things on the inside. Some specifics about when to get it. You want to rest. So again, now is a good time, not when you're in the heart of training season and you can't take 24 to 48 hours off. So I hope most of you could find 24 hours off. But you want to not exercise intensely. You want to have the day or two off so that doesn't skew the results. You want to make sure you go fasted in the early morning. And if you can go in the first 2 to 3 days of your cycle, otherwise plan it. So if you are going to be retesting, that you test females at the same time during your cycle so that you get the same hormone levels, because as you know, those change throughout the cycle.
And the reason we're saying rest is because often, depending on your doctor and their knowledge of sort of physiology and whatnot, and you'd hope they would, but often the liver enzymes AST and ALT will be adversely affected and be elevated if you've done heavy exercise. They'll also probably freak out if you get CK, creatine kinase, tested and you've done a weight session the day before. They'll think you've had a heart attack. So it's more just a cautionary. And if your AST and ALT are elevated because you didn't have appropriate rest, just ask the doctor to have a look at what's called GGT, which is another liver enzyme. And unless you're drinking sort of a bottle of vodka a day, that should be pretty much pretty normal. So, but if GGT is elevated in ALT and AST, then there may be a requirement for further investigation. So, but it's just something to let your doctor know, especially if they're not a sports doctor or inclined in that way.
And then this is the list. If you want to take a screenshot, I suggest kind of these are the tests that we recommend. I'm not going to go into all of them, but in order to kind of get that full panel, you see a full iron panel, CBC, lipids, ApoB, especially if you have a history of heart disease in your family. Obviously, fasting glucose, A1C, type 2 diabetes is on the rise. Your B vitamins, again, especially if you're a plant-based athlete, vitamin D, I will just say it, your hormones, omegas, yeah, all important and key components. Like if you're looking at oxygen saturation in your muscles, if you're looking at, you know, the effects that all of these have on your training and racing and recovery, it's important to get that full panel. And a lot of physicians, especially here in the States, would be hesitant to order all of these unless you had specific reasons to ask for them. So you really have to be your own advocate when asking for a full panel or using something like Inside Tracker.
Yeah, and I think on that point, I mean, the big thing, especially if you are a female athlete, explain that you're a female athlete who's doing endurance activity, endurance sport. You're not sitting at your desk all day, and therefore you actually aren't Gen Pop, and therefore you actually need a little bit more help and a little bit more understanding of what you've got. In terms of the LPA and ApoB, they're one-off markers. You only have to get those done once in your life, and they'll give you their non-modifiable risk factors from a cholesterol standpoint. TSH, T3 and T4 currently aren't shown. Same with Omega Index and Omega 6 and 3 aren't shown on Inside Tracker. We are trying to get them to put them in, but for the time being, you just need to have a look at those levels outside of that. And that's fairly easily understood, and your doctor or Elizabeth or myself could talk you through that. I think the big thing is, look, Inside Tracker is not the be all end all. And certainly what we recommend is actually getting your doctor to do the testing, because it's going to be a lot cheaper. And then you just upload the results into Inside Tracker. Inside Tracker is just a very good way of visualizing it, which is often very helpful for athletes to understand in terms of trends. It's not like a system that suddenly you need to pay $800 for. I think for the upload program is like $80 with the discount. And I think it's a very good $80 to spend to give you 12 months visualization over which way your bloods are going. And if you've got old tests, you can upload all those tests as well. So for instance, I have about 8 years data worth in my Inside Tracker, which shows these data points across the time, because it's just useful to be able to see and make sure that I am, as Elizabeth said, actually intervening where intervention needs to occur, and then monitoring the effect of that intervention. So that's all we really need to say on that. And if anyone needs more information on how to approach that, we're certainly happy to give you some information on that. And then in terms of, DEXA scan, has anyone had a DEXA scan? Yvonne, have you had one? No. And I'm probably picking on you, but just based, I think it's really important from a bone mineral density, given it probably, and again, I'm assuming age-wise, but you would certainly be in an age group that we would recommend having a good understanding of your bone mineral density and also your lean mass.
Sorry, I've had that several times and it's been followed constantly.
Good, excellent. And have you had the body composition part of a DEXA scan as well?
No.
So often, in Australia, I'll talk from an Australian perspective, we don't scan individuals, male or female, until the age of 75 for the risk of osteoporosis, osteopenia. By that point in time, it's often too late. And I can tell you anecdotally that we are seeing a number of female and male athletes in their late 30s, early 40s, who are presenting with low bone mineral density, osteopenia, and we have had cases of osteoporosis in 45-year-old athletes. So it's not uncommon. It's not as uncommon as what you think. In terms of the DEXA scan that we're recommending is not just bone mineral density, it's also with body composition. The importance of the body composition aspect is, okay, everyone will probably go to work out percentage of body fat. No, it's more in relation to your lean mass and your lean mass index, which is going to be a very good indicator of your ability to live a very good long life and a healthy life. And then also your fat mass index, which is much more relevant in terms of your risk of non-communicable type diseases. So things like cancer, type 2 diabetes, metabolic syndrome, cardiovascular disease. Your risk is going to be increased, or the risk of increased chances of those types of diseases occurring will go up as fat mass index goes up. So it is, certainly as a baseline and understanding, do you need to improve body composition rather than just saying, I think I need to lose weight? We strongly believe that this is a very good, accurate measure to quantify what your body composition is from a fat mass and also a lean muscle mass perspective, and also give you that bone mineral density. And if, as it says there, if you've been injured as well, it's often quite revealing. If you've had a left leg injury, you'll see often significant discrepancy between lean mass and maybe increased fat mass on the injured side compared to the other side. So yeah, it's very interesting data. Again, we would review that for the athlete and talk you through what the results would mean. We do have a page where the athlete can follow that themselves as well. Did you have anything, E, that you wanted to add to that?
No, that was perfect.
You go.
All right. So when we're looking at FUELIN and kind of the purpose and why you want to use a, nutrition training based app, in the app itself, there's a way for you to target what it is that you want to work on. Is your primary focus, your primary purpose for training, for weight loss and body composition? Are you, do we have the ability to set goals? We will ask you if you can do fasted sessions, if you can do time restricted feeding. It's very much personalized around the kind of goal and purpose that you have. And as Scott mentioned earlier, that selection of, am I training or am I doing this for performance or for body composition? Once you've made that differentiation, then we can help guide you on where you're going from there. And if it's the body composition piece, that's where time restricted feeding and goals and fasted sessions, as opposed to the performance side, where you're looking at in-session fueling and really dialing in pre and post session nutrition.
And just on this point, we don't actually allow time restricted feeding in season. So the body composition program, the body composition program can be allowed in season and post season, but we don't allow time restricted feeding or fueling to occur in season, just because we're aware that the total volume and intensity set out by the coach's training program, it's not going to be beneficial for you, and you're probably going to end up with a lot of issues if you are trying to do time restricted fueling during in season. And we're pretty strict on that. I mean, there are probably some individual cases where we can talk through and really monitor your program, but as a general basis, that's the way that we set out the program. It doesn't mean that you can't still do some fasted training, i.e. that bottom bit where it says, can you train fasted? There will be cases where, due to the length of the session or the type of session, that you may not require a snack before that session early in the morning, but you'd always certainly be fed after the session, because that's going to be really important, not just from a muscle standpoint, but also from a bone standpoint, and in terms of assisting bone mineral markers, and not, especially for women, avoiding any sort of increased resorption of bone without a deposition of bone mineral markers. So, and if anyone's got any particular questions around that, happy to answer them. Okay.
All right, the fun side, the practical. I love digging into the FUELIN Kitchen. So I think, again, another thing to screenshot if habit building, nutrition habit building is something you really want to work on and focus this year. I think just like you do that kind of end of season evaluation and look back, the same thing goes for looking at, like, with your kitchen. What did I do well last year? What areas could I improve on? And then how can I set myself up for 2023 and make this really, because as your training starts to increase and your focus gets specifically on performance, that nutrition piece ends up taking a backseat. So if you stop and take an inventory, what do I have in the kitchen? What do I need? If you organize it in a proper way where things are efficient, I mean, I could be alone in this, but I love like digging in, removing the clutter, maybe ordering some new stuff, some new glass jars or something on Amazon, if that motivates you to clean up the pantry, get rid of stuff that you're not using or haven't used, order some new equipment. We'll talk about that in a minute. Set yourself, make it fun, make it functional, make it something that you want to be doing and want to be spending your time in. Checking your FUELIN plan, and that's, what am I going to be eating for the week? What do I need? What are my key days? Really looking at your calendar. Oh, the kids have baseball on this day. I have a meeting after work on this day. I'm not going to be home for dinner. It's really about planning, just as you would your training sessions. Where am I going to fit in food shopping and meal prep for the week? Where am I going to have to stop? Like, I know I'm going from this practice to this practice to this practice, so it means I have to eat out. Where along that route can I stop and get something healthy? Meal planning for the week, making your shopping list. I always suggest cooking in bulk. I know it's not Scott's favorite, but I will make, grains ahead. I'll roast a bunch of veggies ahead. I'll cook a bunch of, a big rotisserie chicken. I'll cook that in the air fryer, or make a big, kind of pot of meatballs. And then that way I can add those components to my meal during the week, because I know dinner is probably the hardest. It's the meal I enjoy most, but by the end of the day, I'm exhausted. And a lot of times I just want something easy. So if I've meal prepped and planned that out, other people, it's packing and taking something to lunch that's going to help them be successful. Utilizing your freezer and pantry. I cannot highlight the value money saving and nutritional value of having a freezer full of frozen veggies, frozen fruit, frozen fish, you know, all of these staples. There's absolutely nothing wrong with them, and they can help you get affordable, timely, quick meals on the table. Same thing with the pantry. Grains, beans, legumes, spices, herbs, all of those kinds of things, stocking yourself up so that you know you have those components to make a meal. Tracking your progress. Always, we like to see just, you know, we all like to see in the training peaks or today's plan, like the workout is checked off. Same thing. I like to see that I met my protein goals for the day, or I succeeded in making all 5 dinners during the week that I wanted. So giving yourself and noticing those successful moments, writing them down, sharing them, you know, with the community as a team. Talk about, set some nutrition goals for top line triathlon. Talk about it with a friend, a neighbor, a family member. Make it a community effort. Like Scott said, if you make it public, you're a lot more likely to stick with it. I like this quote out of one of my favorite cookbooks. Outside of running more miles, the single greatest thing athletes can do to improve their performance and their long-term health and happiness is learn to cook. I could not agree more. Cooking is fun. I'm always amazed when people say they don't enjoy being in the kitchen. Even if you don't think you're a gourmet chef, there are ways to make it enjoyable, whether that's, you know, learning how to make a signature dish. Even that can be like a confidence booster and get you to want to do other things. Yeah, knowing that you really can't, I mean, we're not baking here, at least most of the recipes. So cooking, it can be fun. You can figure it out. There's always ways to fix stuff. Do it communally, partner, spouse, friends. Yeah, learn how to be comfortable and have fun in the kitchen, and the healthy eating will follow.
Yeah, and I think I'm not a fan of sort of making meal preps all in advance and having plastic containers in your fridge where you've got the same meal every day, which is a very bodybuilding approach. And I know it works because you can calorie restrict very easily, but it's very boring and, in my opinion, not very healthy. So I am a fan, however, of bulk cooking, where on a Sunday night, you might actually chop up a heap of root vegetables, you know, your beets, your potatoes, sweet potatoes, whatnot, and cook them and sheet pan those for maybe 2 or 3 days and have access to them. So you can just sort of grab a handful of those, a handful of fresh leaves, whether it's arugula or spinach, you know, put some cheese in, depending on your dietary preference. And you're sort of just grabbing handfuls of everything, and that then is adjusted based on the color coding within the system, whether it's a red meal, lower carb, yellow, moderate carb, or green, higher carb. You can just adjust what types of carbohydrates you're putting in because you've got them readily available. And I think that's the key to success, is being organized, as Elizabeth said, without being so meticulous that things are sort of stacked up in plastic containers within your fridge.
Glass. We encourage glass containers, not plastic.
Yes, definitely.
All right, some of our favorite kitchen tools. I'm curious, I'll ask at the end if you have all of these. I'll have you raise your hand. So a high-speed blender, such as like a Vitamix or Magic NutriBullet, I don't know what that one's called. A spiralizer to do like zucchini noodles or spiralized veggies. A crock pot, Instant Pot, Dutch oven. I would probably say a crock pot or a Dutch oven are 2 of my favorite. Dutch oven really most used. I'm getting better with the air fryer. Glass jars and containers, definitely necessary to be able to take meals with you, store things. And like Scott said, even if you're not meal prepping, it can be helpful if you know you're going to be busy at night and you have some time in the morning, you know, clean off all your berries and put them in a jar so that they're ready for the kids or you to grab, and so you don't have to rinse them every time, or pre-slice some vegetables or something like that and put those in. A sheet pan, essential. I roast just about everything. I use my oven and sheet pan every single day. Salad spinner, I think, is very convenient. Sometimes I live life on the edge. Don't rinse my greens if they've already been triple washed. I don't know. I like to break the law, but it is convenient when you're making salads all the time. A skillet, essential. A cast iron pan. A kitchen scale. can be helpful, especially if you are learning proper portion sizes. I'm not surprised, but so many of our athletes will tell us, I had no idea I was eating so little protein. I thought I was getting enough in. I thought what I thought was a serving of chicken or a serving of fish wasn't even close. And so a kitchen scale can help with that. And a lot on the flip side, they were like, wow, I was eating way too much rice or way too many potatoes, or, so it helps while you're learning portion sizes and adjusting. Measuring cups, knives, and cutting boards. All right, who has all of these in their kitchen? Any? No? Okay, there you go. There's a couple. Any that you guys think I missed that you would say are essential?
I think the air fryer, for me, the air fryer is amazing. If you all have one, if you don't have one, I would get one. And honestly, if you're dubious about it, go to Kmart. I think they do one for about 20. Well, they do one for 27 Australian dollars. So I imagine it's about $20 in America.
Just as good.
It's a bit UFO like. It's very big, but it works very, very well. And actually, I gave it to a friend because we upgraded to the Ninja, and the Ninja broke, and the Kmart one's still going for my friend. So I would say that an air fryer is fantastic for things like vegetables, for like your roasted vegetables. It's so quick. You can put a whole chicken in there. You can cook it. It does perfectly crispy skinned salmon. Oh. If you eat fish, I would say that. So yeah, that would probably be my number one.
Yeah, and here's a trick that I like. If you either share a house with or don't want your house to smell like fish, but you want to be cooking the fish, it sounds a little bit janky, but you can take your air fryer outside and you can cook your salmon out there, and then your house doesn't smell. So it's like a portable. But
even if you cook the salmon in there, it doesn't smell. Like if you cook salmon on a stovetop, like it really stinks your house out. Whereas I find in the air fryer, it doesn't tend to do that. So yeah, it's very good. I think it's one of those ones. And I think the other thing, like I've got a Le Creuset Dutch oven, and yes, they're expensive, but I literally use it every day of the week. Like we'll always slow cook stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So slow cooking is very good. You can buy cheap cuts of meat and turn them into delicious things. Things like your cheek, your shin, tail. If you're into sort of cooking offal, things like liver and stuff and hearts, then you can make very delicious meals. But that's probably a whole nother seminar and discussion about cooking organ meats.
If your blood work is showing, as mine does repeatedly, the low iron, ferritin, those organ meats, you got to include those. And there's like 2 good ways to do it, and slow cooking them is one. So. All right. I think did we skip the budget?
We'll go on to this one. Yeah.
So how do we do it? Looking in at the FUELIN app, you can kind of see the breakdown. Like we've listed snacks, a yellow snack, so a moderate carbohydrate snack. If you look at lunch, or breakfast is a higher carbohydrate meal, lunch moderate, dinner higher carbohydrate. So look at the week. Go into each day, look at your protein needs, your carbohydrate needs, figure out which days are which. You can go in to the meal selection. You can pick recipes from the app. That's what I like to do at the beginning of the week. So I know I'm having my fish on this day, the chicken, ground beef, tofu, whatever. And then you can go and make your shopping list from there. So it's looking at what you need, making a few recipe selections, and then filling out, oh yeah, I know these are the proteins I'm going to need, fats, carbs, these are the veggies. And I get a lot of the same things every week. So my shopping list is pretty consistent, but then I'll look, this week is a higher training week. I'm going to need more of X, Y, and Z. And then any special ingredients, I always encourage people to try at least one new recipe a month. So that's where our special ingredients would come in.
And honestly, I think too many people make this too hard on themselves. And I think if you literally just have your staples, and again, everyone will eat, depending again on your dietary preference, whether you're omnivore, pescatarian, or a vegan, vegetarian, you're going to have your preferred proteins. So just buy the amount that you need to get you through the entire 7 days. Now you can pick and choose what day of the week you want to do that. If you want to have, you know, meatless Mondays, if you want to do steak Tuesday, whatever it is, but as long as you've got that amount of protein to serve you for dinner, and if you really want to make it simple, make double the amount at dinner that then is substituted in for the next day for your protein for lunch. And then all you have to do is adjust the amount of carbohydrates based on the number, which is simply going to be either using a lot of salad and vegetables if it's red, if it's, and we're talking leafy type vegetables, if it's yellow, probably adding in some root vegetables, potentially some rice or some grains. If it's green, you're then just bumping it up either with more of those the root vegetables, the grains, or adding in something like a pasta or rice to that to get you to that total amount. And that's just your meal building system. So you're just literally upgrading the color of carbohydrate based on what you see. And then the protein and fat remains fairly similar throughout. And that's just a really easy way of breaking down the week and looking, you know, whenever you look through each day, you're just going, okay, I get it. It's a red meal. It's lower carb. It's salad and vegetables. Oh, it's yellow. I add a little bit more. Green, I'm eating a lot more. Happy days. That's generally how we approach it. So just try not to make it too complicated yourself, and you tend to do very, very well.
All right, the 4 big takeaways from this session. Train your fueling the same way that you train your fitness, meaning make your fueling a priority. Know what you need. Make sure that you're adjusting it just as you do your training. Have a plan. Complete that body check, blood work, DEXA scan at the beginning of the year so you can make those improvements. Set yourself up for success in the kitchen, and then being consistent. I think it's Jesse Thomas that used to say it, like a B+ all year long is better than an A for 2 days and a D or a C or a D for the remaining months. Like, shoot for a B+ average for the entire year, making consistent changes, and you will see those benefits. You will feel better, you will train better, you will sleep better. And ultimately, if you are making healthy changes, you will live better, live longer. You will see those improvements over time.
Yeah, and look, it's, you know, I was having a moan to Elizabeth before because I had someone complaining that things were a little bit hard, and the reality is it's hard. Like, training is hard, nutrition is hard. If it was super easy, everyone would be super successful and do it all the time. It's just life, isn't it? So, like, the end of the day, nutrition, there is a lot of technical aspects, there's a lot of science in that, and what we're trying to do is make it as easy as possible. The reality is it still takes effort. Okay, it takes effort on behalf of the athlete to apply themselves, exactly as Elizabeth said, in a consistent manner. And it's all about riding a bike once is not going to get you to Kona. It's the same with eating a salad. One salad's not necessarily going to get you into whatever health state you want. It's eating the same amount of protein, the same amount of fat, getting your calories in order, getting your total macronutrients in order, and having that specific to whatever your training is to achieve your purpose. And that does take a little bit of effort, but we can guarantee if you put the effort into all the components of this, you will get much better results. And it's just the way it is. We see this all the time. The athletes who put in the effort, and they put in not necessarily equal amounts of effort, because I think the physical effort is certainly a lot harder. But if you do apply yourself with, okay, I'm going to be consistent with my eating in order to achieve, again, whatever that purpose is, whether it is performing at your absolute best or trying to improve maybe health or body composition, then it is the consistency that's going to be king. No fad diets, nothing like that. It's just being sensible and following, you know, the principles which are very grounded in the science and in the research around performance nutrition. Okay. Does anyone have any questions?
Mm-hmm.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I'll start off with a question and definitely want others to chime in as well. But you mentioned at the beginning kind of not overlapping body composition goals with performance goals. Can you expand on that a little bit further?
Yeah, I think so. Effectively, if you're going to be achieving an improvement in body composition, and this is the post-season period in particular, is a really good time to do that. But in order to achieve improvements in body weight or body composition, you have to be in a caloric deficit. That's physics. It's the second law of thermodynamics. That, you know, despite what you might hear on social media, it is actually a fact. That you're going to have to be in a caloric deficit. And when you go into a caloric deficit, you generally don't have as much energy. So if that athlete is also being asked to perform maybe an FTP test, or, you know, do a 10K time trial, and they're trying to lose body weight or improve body composition, it's probably not, it's not going to work. So if they're being asked to do an FTP, then I would say that actually don't focus on body composition, focus on fueling, focus on being actually at your optimal in terms of, you know, making sure glycogen stores are correct, making sure in-session fueling is correct, all that. But if at this time of year, your goal is maybe to drop a couple of kilos, that has to be accepted in terms of performance outcomes for the athlete, but also performance outcomes for the coach. Hey, coach, I didn't feel great on this session. That's okay. We know that you're not necessarily eating as much as what we would have you eating when it comes to racing and preparing for racing and doing all those, you know, those specific sessions which are geared towards race specificity. And that's all we're talking about there, Nicole. And it does help. And the reason we designed it in the app like that is because it then makes it very clear, okay, I am working toward, and we have some information in the app about it, but if it is, you know, performance, it will affect the caloric prescription, what we're giving to the athlete. So we won't be putting them into a deficit. We'll be keeping them in a nicer caloric state or even a surplus. So they need to be, you know, ready for that. And they may look at the program and go, whoa, okay, I'm getting a lot more calories now. But that's good because we're trying to actually get them to perform at their best.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm always trying to encourage athletes to kind of keep those two things separate. And I really like to go for the performance goals and keep the, you know, the body comp goals as a very minuscule part of the year. But I know that that's a concern for some people around this time of year. So I appreciate the explanation.
And look, back to the first point, like I think a lot of athletes get into the sport of triathlon to lose some weight. Like, you know, a lot of them do invariably, whether it's their primary goal or a secondary goal. Now, is it the best sport to lose weight in? We have this discussion all the time, probably not. But, and it's not to say if you're in that performance, you know, phase that you can't improve body composition too. You still may end up invariably in a slight deficit because training is very high and we don't quite get it right. And, you know, you maybe do end up improving body fat, maybe you don't lose weight. And that's again where the DEXA is important, because we might have athletes who go, oh, I'm not losing any weight, but I'm performing really well. And then they go and get a DEXA and it's like, oh, so lean muscle mass has either gone up a little bit and fat mass has come down, but net, they stay at the same body weight. They're like, oh, but they're hung up on the weight on the scale. And so that's, again, a reason to get a DEXA is actually say, do you need to lose weight? Because, you know, we, unfortunately, you know, we do get athletes who are in the 110, somewhere between 100 and 120 pounds who still think they need to lose weight. And it's not necessary, you know, and sometimes having a DEXA can quantify that. And, you know, in some athletes' case, it's like, well, actually your lean muscle mass index is extremely low for your age group. And I would encourage actually trying to put on weight. They start eating more, they start putting on a little bit of weight. You know, suddenly they do report that maybe their menstrual cycle has come back, and actually they're performing better than what they have, and yet they're putting on a few kilos. So, you know, it's one of those gray areas that's not often talked about. And certainly Elizabeth's been very open with her experience with Red S and LEA and whatnot. And, you know, it's certainly something we're very aware of. That, yeah, I think, again, everyone wants to like improve body composition and that, but it's not always required.
Thank you.
Did you have any questions? Is it Yana? No questions?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So I've actually signed up with you guys, but I haven't got real focused on it yet. I've been waiting kind of for the holidays to end, and then we have a big vacation coming up. And I'm probably going to get with Elizabeth for a one-on-one. But I did track a couple of days, and one thing I noticed I'm struggling with right away is protein intake. I don't eat meat. So just off the top of your head, can you think of a way to increase that without eating like tofu every single day?
Can we do every other day?
And I do it almost every other day, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I incorporate like a tofu scramble in the mornings.
Yeah. So you're definitely going to need a protein powder, just it's kind of standard. You're going to need some plant-based yogurts. That's going to help. Beans, again, those are higher in carbohydrates, so you're really going to have to like manage. But if you know kind of that's where your protein and your carbohydrates are coming from, that's going to help. Something like hemp seeds, you get 2 tablespoons of those, you've got 10 grams. The fortified like almond milk, soy milk, flax milk, actually, there's one here that I get it's got 10 grams of protein in 1 cup. So I will have 2 cups of that a day, whether that's a cup added in my smoothie or like a cup with dinner. That's a way to do it. And then I think we kind of forget like that every little bit adds up. So like I don't know, PB Fit peanut butter, the dry powder or whatever, that's like 2 scoops of that is very low in calories, but you can get 10 grams of protein there. So it's like, oh, if I have a plant-based yogurt that has 12 grams, and then I put 2 scoops of PB Fit in that, then there's another 10 grams, and then I throw some hemp seeds on, and now it's basically 400 calories, and I've got almost 30 grams of protein.
It sounds like I'm kind of on the right track. We have all that stuff. So yeah. I've just never thought about adding like the peanut butter, the powder into.
Yeah, there's little things like that end up kind of helping. And again, when you throw in like tempeh, tofu, edamame, that's one of my favorites because it's a little lower calorically and has a lot of protein. The quinoa, again, like building things on top of one another, using your protein powder to make protein waffles or pancakes. So that way you're getting, you're not just doing a smoothie, you can do that and then throw, we have like, what's it called? Nutso peanut butter that has a bunch of seeds and stuff in it. And there's, I don't know, 6 grams of protein, which is not a lot. But again, every little bit can kind of add up to something.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Ashley, can I ask just a question? Is it an ethical choice?
No, we just decided back in 2020 during lockdown, we watched some documentaries and we decided to do a 30-day challenge just to see if we could do it. And we did it and we felt really good. So we just stuck with it. So I'd already started eating a lot of vegetables before that. And I just really like vegetables. So
cool. I'm all for everyone's dietary preferences. Just be very aware that those documentaries are terrible and based purely on sensationalism. I can only imagine the ones that you've probably Game Changers or Cowspiracy or any of those. I would then go to what Elizabeth talked about, the blood tests. You're a female, you're a young female endurance athlete. I could probably guarantee that your ferritin levels are now going to be bottomed out. Your B12 will be bottomed out. Your folate potentially could be bottomed out. And are you a vegan? Are you going vegan?
Yeah.
Okay. So are you eating fish?
No.
Okay. Yeah. I think a 1-to-1 with Elizabeth would be very important for you, just given your demographics and what you're doing with your diet, because a well-structured vegetarian diet can be very, very successful. A poorly structured vegan or vegetarian diet can be absolutely disastrous. for your, not just performance, but for your health. And look, we all love vegetables, and in the program, you'll see every day, eat 2 fists of veggies for every meal. Like, it's hammered into athletes to eat 6 fists of veggies a day. So we're all for vegetables. It's just protein requirement and all the micronutrients become very important as well. So and Elizabeth would be great to talk through that, because she's a specialist in plant-based diets and what to look for, and then potentially some other supplements that could be considered if you have the baseline testing sort of checked off.
All right, I'll be sure to get with her. Thank you.
Great question. It's
Yeah,
important.
it's a good one.
Because some, even athletes that do eat meat, it's, you can do a meatless Monday, or you can do, to add variety to your diet. So I think anytime, like, it's a helpful question for everyone to stop and go, how can I combine different foods and get variety and make up and hit my protein needs? So it's helpful for everybody, plant-based.
And one of the tests that we did mention in there is what's called an omega-3 index. And it's probably, for me, it's probably one of the most interesting blood tests you'll get done, because it will give you an indication of the omega-3 levels that you have. And if you're not eating fish, and I dare say if you're not then supplementing with an omega-3, then it will probably be very, very low. And that can relate to systemic inflammation. It can relate to reduced amounts of DHA in the brain, which could be, again, if you're susceptible, there's some really interesting research where family history of Alzheimer's and you have low DHA levels, then the risk factor for increased risk of Alzheimer's later in life is going to go up significantly. So, there's all those types of things to consider if you're not eating fish and if you're not supplementing as well. And something like that test is, it's very actionable. You can change it in sort of a matter of 8 to 12 weeks and see noticeable increases in that omega-3 profile through either eating fish consciously or supplementing consciously.
And that's an important piece for everybody listening, males and females, but females especially. Right before the break, I did a session for our FUELIN athletes on menopause, and 2 women for every 1 man will get Alzheimer's. Like, and that starts in the brain. So the importance I'm now learning and realizing of brain health and taking care of your brain, not just when menopause hits, but in the 30s, 40s, 50s, making those long-term kind of deposits, if you will, to make sure that your brain is healthy. And like Scott said, omega-3, creatine, making sure blood levels are correct on all of your other different vitamins and minerals. It's something we all need to be aware of. And again, why blood testing is important. But you guys are in the right place. We're going to make sure you're taken care of.
Very good. Well, if there's no more questions, then we'll end the session there, and certainly feel free to reach out. At the end of this session, if you should get a little pop-up quiz. Just if you could take 2 seconds and just complete that. Just let us know if you found the session worthwhile, and if there's other things that you're interested in, that would be great. Sorry about the mess up with the link. Not sure what happened, but hopefully didn't cause too many issues.
This tells us just how much you really wanted to be here. We made sure that we appreciate it. Thanks, Nicole.
Thank you. Thank you both so much. I really appreciate your expertise and just, sharing your wisdom. I am not an expert in this field, but really lean very much on this amazing group of experts we have in the world of triathlon and running. And so just really appreciate you guys spending your time. And I'll encourage everyone to reach out if they have further questions, and hope that they hop on FUELIN pretty soon and get things dialed in. So thanks so much.
I would like to just say thank you. I wish I were 30 years younger and starting again. It's a little bit difficult in your 70s, but this was fascinating, and I hope that a lot more people will dial into it.
Well, thank you, Yvonne. And actually, we just the last 2 Q&As, which will be on YouTube, we did one on older athletes and protein requirements, and then another one on postmenopausal women. which could be both of those topics may be of interest to you. And Ashley, one of the older, maybe your father might be interested in the one about protein and older athletes as well. And I say older athletes because older is over 50. So we talk about the classifications there. So yeah, I'm very well. Actually, a masters athlete's over 35 years, so it's quite depressing in that sense. But so yeah, and just so you know as well, we've launched a slightly different program, which could be it won't have the live Q&A access, but it is at a reduced price. And obviously with Topline, you know, we aim to do, as part of just being affiliated with Topline, we aim to do these Q&As throughout the year as well. So the pilot subscription may be of interest, Nicole, to your athletes who maybe are constrained through budget, and then they may be interested in that sense. So have a look at the website. And you can share that with your athletes, and if they've got any questions, they can ask us.
Will do. Thank you so much.
Cool. Well, thanks everyone,
Okay.
and we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you,
Happy
guys.
Bye. Thanks.
That was nice of everyone.
Yeah.
That was very nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. It's good. We'll just yeah, you follow up with Nicole afterwards, and
I will.
how many, we need to find out how many athletes she's got, I guess.
I will. She's
And
very
I think
nice and complimentary and
Yeah.
encouraging.
I think what we just need to, again, we need to get better at trying to line up. Like what I'd say is, if we pick a team, if you've got like, if we're trying to line up teams, then like give the same date to like 3 teams in your under your management. Do you know what I mean? Like say, hey, I'm going to suggest this time and this topic, and send it to 3 coaches, and then we just do like that. That's how we do it, so that it maximizing our time, because it's just not worth, like, I don't know why my screen's like that actually. But yeah, I don't like, I think we should just try and maximize 2 or 3 teams at a time.
Okay.
And if you line up something like that, like I think we just line up, you know, if I say you've got something lined up, I'll just send it out to some teams as well and say, hey, this is coming. So do it this way.
Good. Okay.
Cool.
So,
Okay. Good stuff.
have a good rest of your day.
I sent you some L-carnitine stuff as well.
Ooh, good.
So you know
Reading
that.
with dinner.
Exactly. Cool.
Thanks,
I'll
guys.
see you in a bit. Thanks, E.